Welcome everybody to the latest edition of Trendspotting. I'm so happy to be here with Meghan Shigo, number 8 in the entire company, here coming live from her beautiful office in Anaheim.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Absolutely.
We're here today to talk about what's happening in the market, specifically what's happening here in your area in Anaheim and in Orange County and the areas that you serve. So thanks for sharing your insight with us.
I love to share my insight.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. So let's talk about active inventory. It feels like we've peaked already, and we never really got that rush of new inventory this year like we hope. So in Orange County, maybe we're sitting around 2,900 on the market right now. And typically at this time of the year, we start seeing that number start declining. What's happening with active listings right now?
Well, I feel like in North Orange County, I think we peaked like in March. It felt like it was really early and it went sort of fast and furious. And by the time June rolled around, which is right around the time that some of the restrictions were lifted and people were free to move about, the building, on their own. And people went on vacation and they just kind of put off putting their house up for sale, but there was still a lot of buyers. And so the inventory started to shrink again. So we never really hit that summer peak and really kind of we've been sort of petering out ever since.
And when you're talking to potential sellers now, do you feel like there's going to be some people that are putting their market here before the end of the year?
Yeah, there's a couple, but there's not many. So sadly, I see that we're not going to see anything dynamic as far as inventory growth happen between now and the end of the year. I think things are going to continue to sort of follow this trend of not very many homes on the market and a lot of buyers out shopping still. That has not changed in my area.
So I'm a seller in Anaheim right now, and I'm thinking about selling, and I'm deciding whether I should do it now or I should do it in January. What do you tell me?
It just depends on what your goal is, where you want to go. So if it works out for you to go ahead and put your house up for sale now, I think that it would still be a great reward to you to do it now versus January, especially if you're going to buy somewhere else. I mean, it's sort of a wash. You're not going to be missing out on, thousands of dollars of equity growth between now and January if you're buying in the same county. And if you're buying in a higher price range, then obviously your dollars are going to go a little bit further in a higher price range. So, with a seller, I always ask them what their goal is, what will work for them, and, if they're traveling during the holidays, maybe they don't want to put their house up for sale. So it's individual. But I think, if anything, during the pandemic has really taught us to seize the day and seize the opportunity. So if it makes sense, then just do it.
Do it now if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So the governor signed the bill, and rent forgiveness is going away, and also eviction moratorium goes away at the end of this month. So end of September, if you want to evict your tenants for not paying, you can. And so there's been some speculation of what does that mean? What's going to happen? Is there going to be people roaming the streets? Are there going to be a lot of new homes on the market? What are you hearing locally?
Well, my office is here in Anaheim, and Anaheim has about over 50% rentals versus homeowners. And I have not seen too many people that have not, there's not that many people behind like people think that there are. There is not as much as you think that is running behind because, if you're a long-term tenant around here, you probably have pretty decent rent anyway, and you don't necessarily want to risk the relationship that you have with your landlord. So, I talk to a lot of people, I keep in touch with my clients, and I only know of one that has a situation right now with a tenant. And they were able to claim some funds from, from the local municipalities to make up for their loss in rent. But I think that we're not going to see a lot of people evicted like the news sort of portrays that it's some big ominous thing going to happen, because people, where are they going to go if they have this eviction? I think they're going to try to maintain the relationship that they have with their landlord as much as they can. But I think there'll be some sellers that will come to the market because this may have been too much for them.
And I'm hearing anecdotally some of that there are some landlords that are saying, enough, I don't want to be in this business anymore, I want to put my home on the market. Have you heard those stories? Do you think we're going to see some more houses on the market because of this?
Well, I mean, landlording is not for everybody. And a lot of rules have changed and laws over the last couple of years. There's rent control, and I mean, some landlords, this might have been just the icing on the cake for them.
Right.
And they might just say, forget it. I've had a lot of equity gain in the last few years,
right,
and I'm going to pay capital gains, but I don't care. My sanity is worth it, and sell. But I don't even, we're so far behind on inventory that even if 1,000 sellers came to the market,
wouldn't make a dent, right?
It really would not make a dent. So I mean, we may see more, but probably not anything that's going to be life-changing.
Okay. All right, let's go into interest rates. We have been fortunate to have low interest rates all year, right?
I love these
And but of course, there's always talk that they're going up. Fed meets in November, and the Fed has been, as you know, they've been buying down to keep them artificially low. They've kind of let it to be known that they're going to stop doing that in November, which in a normal market would cause rates to go up. So two-part question, where do you think rates are going to go in the fourth quarter? And second, do you feel like your buyers have been rate sensitive this year? Because what I'm feeling, it hasn't been as rate sensitive as it been in years past. They're not shopping around for 0.25 less than they used to. So comments on those two things.
That's a good point. So as far as the rates go, so Anaheim has a lot of, like Anaheim, Santa Ana has a lot of starter houses, right? So people that are buying their first house, they're payment sensitive. We're not really necessarily rate sensitive, we're payment sensitive. So if there's a rate change that equates into a few $100s a month difference on their house payment, then we're going to see a little bit of, it's sort of like a cleansing of the buyer pool, the seller pool. Whenever the interest rates go up, people have to readjust their expectations. And buyers have to understand that if they were going to spend $600,000 and the rate goes up a point, now they're probably only going to spend $500,000.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a huge deal. So they made this mistake, I think it was in 2018, that the rates went up about a point in about 6 months.
Right.
And it was a pretty big adjustment around here. But we did recuperate from it because they obviously, settled down. And they were at like 4% and people were still happy and buying, and that was fine. So I think that any kind of a rate change under 5% is not going to be probably like earth-shattering. And they probably are going to inch them back up because at some point the government has to stop holding our hands and let the market be a free market, But it is for sure very indicative of what is going to happen because people don't necessarily look at how much they're going to spend on a house. They look at how much it's going to cost them every month. So, yeah, I think they'll probably go up little by little. Hopefully they won't make any huge jumps, and just to kind of slow things down, even things out. But again, because there's nothing for sale, even small increments of rate changes, I think, are not necessarily going to change the market. I think in the last year and a half, we've had such huge gains in our equity that we may be looking at, a normal sort of growth rate for the next few years, maybe 5 to 7%. But I don't think that the interest rate's going to really stop that unless it's something huge and terrible.
And do you think that interest rates caused this rush of buyers that we've been seeing?
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I refinanced my house and at 2.5%. I mean,
crazy.
It's bananas.
It's free money.
It is. It feels like, free money. It's like my house payment is so low. And that's another thing, I think, why we don't see a lot of people coming to market.
Where would they go?
Where would they
buy?
go? Yeah, like I know that a lot of people I've sold homes to, like they're never moving. Their payments are like $3,000 to $4,000 a month. That's affordable to them.
They have a great house.
They have a great house. Their taxes are pretty under control.
Sure.
Their property taxes. And so I think that the culture of home ownership has just changed so much since I got in the real estate business 23 years ago. People moved a lot more often. I don't see that. I see people are going to be in their houses for a long time.
They're staying put. Yes, you and I, Megan, we've been doing this for a while. What's the biggest interest rate that you ever sold a buyer? What's the highest amount? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it was in. It's really not that impressive. Okay, so I started in '98, and the interest rates in '98 were 7.5%.
Okay.
So I think that I mean they've been like pretty good since then. They maybe edged a little in the 8s, but basically I think that was the highest.
Still, I mean, I know that we're a lot higher than that, but 8, I mean, if you tell your buyers today that 8, they don't even believe you. They don't think that even is true.
I know. You talk to people who've been in the business even longer, and they're like, wow, 17%.
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't been in that long.
I know. I'm like, well, their houses were also 150,000,
right,
but
right.
It's a little different now, but anyway.
All right, let's go into demand. And so when we talk about demand, I'm talking about how many homes have gone into escrow in the last 30 days. Mm-hmm. And so we see that demand has really started to slow down, and it's kind of been in step with the listings going down. So demand has kind of gone down a little bit, listings. So we've seen really kind of no change because it's been the same. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing in demand right now, and what do you see demand in the next 90 days?
I think that the market's changed a little bit more of a seasonal market versus last year we had a COVID market. And COVID saw no season, no change. Right. And we saw a lot of people that were in situations that they did not want to be in, and they had to have a real, come to Jesus talk with who they lived with, their family. And it's like, if you're working from home and I'm working from home and the kids are schooling from home. But now, in the end of August, a lot of the kids went back to school around here. So seasonally, in a normal market, this is when we see a little bit of a slowdown.
Right.
And so I think it's normal. But honestly, I know that, you're respectfully, you're looking at numbers and graphs and charts, and you're getting information, and the realtors around you are telling you things and that sort of thing. But from what I'm seeing here is that there's some rules that still apply, even though the market's good. And your house has to be priced respectively to the market. So if it's priced well, and if it's accessible, that people can come and see it, and that it shows well, and it smells good, and the pictures are great, and the information is accessible, that you're still going to have way more than 10 buyers for your house. Does that make sense? So
even today.
Yeah, even today.
So you've been fortunate to help lots of sellers this year. You've already helped 36 sellers sell their homes this year. Great job.
Thank you.
So you put a home that's priced right now on the market, in great condition. You put it on Friday. How many offers do you get this weekend?
So we have a strategy. So I like to put the houses up for sale on a Tuesday.
Okay.
I like to give people time to process things. Like, I want to be respectful of a buyer's decision to buy a house, because once we open escrow, I do not want to cancel escrow, and I want them to feel secure, and I want the seller to also have time to process. So I put a house on the market on a Tuesday. Then we usually have showings start Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we typically look at offers on the following Tuesday, which...
and so you don't take any offers in that period of time?
Well, we take the offers and I present them to the seller, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but I think it's helpful. So I as soon as the offer comes in, I send it to the seller with a little summary, and I number it. And then I take that summary and I plop it on a spreadsheet. And so the seller is able to watch kind of what's happening in real time with the offers coming in on their house. And if it's the seller's house, it's the seller's choice. We advertise that we're going to, offers are due by Tuesday at noon. But if somebody comes into the seller and says, I'll, give you $1 million over your list price,
firstborn.
I mean, the seller can choose to do what they want. It's
Right.
their house, But typically what we do is we wait.
And then do you counter everybody, or does it depend on the situation?
In a perfect world, I would like to counter everybody, because I know people have taken the
Sure.
time out of their lives, and they've maybe made a choice not to visit their grandma. And they came to see this house, and I want everyone to have an opportunity, but at the same time, there's usually a top 3 that really stick out. So I just explained to the seller what their choices are. You can counter all of them. You can counter these. You can accept that. So I just give the seller the education and then let them make the choice. So
we put the house on
typically we
Tuesday.
counter everybody, though.
So we put it on Tuesday. How many offers do we get by the following Tuesday? Today, this week?
Well, we have one. This week, I put one on the market last week. The last sale in this community I sold last year for $615, but that unit was 400 square feet bigger. So I priced this one at $650 because I don't want to underprice it because I don't need more people leading them down the wrong path. So
and you're getting plenty of offers anyway, so you don't need to.
Yeah, so I priced it at $650, and today I have 12 offers.
Wow.
And they're over 7.
Wow.
No appraisal contingency. You know, they've got the cash in the bank to make up the difference.
A lot of cash out there right now,
A lot of money.
right?
I've never seen so much money in my life, honestly.
Surprisingly.
It's pretty like, wow, where's all this money come from? I don't know.
So even today you're getting that amount of offers.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, let me talk about a pet peeve. Poorly written offers. I'm so surprised how many poorly written offers I still see. So out of those 12 offers you get, what percentage would you say are poorly written? And what's your worst thing that you see in an offer that's written poorly?
All right. So deep cleansing breath. Because I want to be nice, right?
You're nice.
In my heart, I'm a teacher, right? But it's like, and I know people have like offer fatigue, right? But
you're making excuses for them already?
I am. I try to be nice. So I had this agent call me or text me, never called me. I have no calls ever from this agent, no texts. On Sunday, he texted me. He goes, hey, I wanted to know what happened with my offer on Main Street. And I'm like, who is this guy? I had like 20 offers. And so I went back to my spreadsheet. I'm like, did he... What? Huh? Because I already notified everybody a week ago that I'm sorry you didn't, get your offer accepted. And so I was like, I put another set of eyes on it, Chris from the office. I said, Chris, have you ever seen this guy before? We never got his offer. He never called or texted to say, hey, can you send me a confirmation?
So you didn't counter him.
He didn't get a counter. And it's like, I feel so bad for his clients. Then I have another...
It's the buyers. They don't know. They don't know that they're being represented poorly. They don't.
Like, here's the deal. Sometimes people see that they're going to get a refund on a commission or somebody, entices someone that way sort of monetarily. And, maybe they'll look at big online companies where there's a refund. It's like, those companies are great technology companies. I mean, they're really good, right? But out in the field, getting things done is not worth the $2,500 you're going to get back.
That you're never going to get anyway.
I know, because you're not going to get the house.
Right.
And that represents just like a tenth of the fraction of the equity they're going to gain in the next 6 months. I mean, don't be short-sighted. Yeah. And then I have another one that submitted an offer, and they send me this proof of funds. It's kind of confusing. So I call the lender, because I still call all the lenders to make sure. I'm like, do you know this borrower?
Right.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Are they W-9 or W-2? Are they 1099? What's the story? And the lender tells me yesterday, oh, it's a 1031 exchange. And I go,
and not in the
nobody
offer.
told me anything about that. And that's a good thing for my seller. I like a 1031 exchange because there's deadlines and there's consequences, and so usually somebody who's doing an exchange is really motivated.
But if they don't tell you, what else did they not tell you?
That would have been nice to know.
Right.
So we're like, I'm seeing a lot of that right now,
so
and it's
what percentage
sad.
of the offers that you receive are you just discount right away?
Well, I don't discount anything.
Of course.
I give it to the seller.
Yes, of course.
And I make notes, and I say, okay, here's what I'm seeing here. I called the agent, or I never heard from the agent, or my lockbox has no recollection of this agent ever visiting this property, So I give them because that's what they pay me for, right? Like, they're like, Meghan, you've been doing this 23 years. What do you know? What can you tell us? So I tell them, and then they can make their own choice.
So again, what percentage do you think are not doing their buyers any favors?
I think they're about 30%.
30%. I was going to guess 50.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But I told you, I'm being nice.
Okay.
I I just get out a red marker and I go, okay, guys,
Like grading a paper.
Oh my gosh, I know. I had someone last week. They wrote the whole offer up like it was cash, and I knew it wasn't cash because the cash wasn't in the bank. Like, they don't even know how to fill out the form. And then I had apartments, and they gave me a residential, and I said, you've got to do an income property, residential or agreement. Because it's units. It's completely different, sweetheart. It's like, there's tenant estoppel certificates,
Right.
there's deposits, there's legalities. Like, I had to ask her 3 times to rewrite the offer on the right form. I had sent her the form.
Using the right agent as your representative makes a huge difference.
All the time.
All the time, yeah.
The thing is that,
It's whether you get the house or not. That's how big of a difference it is.
It is a huge difference, and especially right now. It's like there's been a lot of companies, since we've been around and your parents have been around, and that come and they are sort of gimmicky,
Right.
But that's the one thing about real estate that hasn't changed. There's been a lot of things that have changed, but the one thing that hasn't changed is being an awesome realtor and picking up the phone and building relationships and doing the right thing and just problem solving and calming people and just walking them through the process, That hasn't changed, and it won't change. There's no computer that can do it or app or...
And that's why you're so great at what you do.
Thank you.
So there's a study by Realtor.com, and they do this every year, and they say, what is the absolute best time to buy a house? And so the algorithm came out, and they have decided that the week of October 3rd through the 9th is the best week in the entire year to buy a house in 2021.
What are we doing here? We need to go get these houses. It's this next week.
It's next week, yeah.
Oh, man, okay.
So they say that for whatever reason that the balance is in alignment during that week. So
the moon and the star, everything's worked out.
I was talking about demand and actives, but yes, that too. But that week is supposed to give the buyer the best advantage to get a house the entire year. What's your take on that? Do you think that's true?
I think that is true. I usually have like a pretty good fall because there's people that want to have certain goals met by the end of the year.
And that would be the week to do it, right?
And before the holidays. So that's it.
All right, let's get to that in escrow this next week.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk
I'm gonna
about.
Call everybody today.
Tell them, hey, this is you want to buy. This is the week to
know.
do it. All right, let's talk about prices. We've had an extraordinary amount of appreciation this year. We've been going that, but this year's just been crazy. And Southern California has had a huge increase. Now, these last couple of months, it's kind of dipped down just a tiny bit, but still a huge increase. Now, if we look at the different counties, you can see that Orange County up 1.1 million as a median price now, which is just crazy. So what do you think about the values right now? Is this sustainable? Are we in for a big crash with prices? What's happening here?
I don't think that we're in any kind of a danger with prices because, again, it just has to do with the interest rates, and I don't think they're going to drop. I mean, if interest rates went from 3 to 10, we'd be in really big trouble, right?
Nothing is saying that would ever happen.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think that what's sustainable is probably a 5 to 7% increase. And I think that's probably what we're going to see until some other, wild, crazy thing comes up and pushes demand or rates or whatever the situation is. But I think that we've probably come to, kind of ahead for this year and might just see normal appreciation going forward until something happens. But I mean, it's happening. I mean, the interest rates at the rates that they're at is what's happening,
So you're seeing that the rate of appreciation will start to taper off here towards the end of the year.
That's what I think.
And hopefully go to
because this year
normal.
I think it was around here I think it was something like, I'm not looking at your 17%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Orange County 18.3. Like, come on now, we can't do that every year.
Right. So also, what do you see about? I see a little bit of greed with sellers sometimes when this appreciation and they've made X amount, but they want even more. How do you handle that? And is that widespread?
I have something that I say. Sometimes I say it in my head, sometimes I say it out loud. And that is that a buyer doesn't care what you want. Like, they do care what you want, but initially you have to price your home accordingly, to what's happening in the market and what's happening around you and your amenities. You know, like houses in my neighborhood here, most of them are custom, and it's totally relevant, like a lot of things. Like, do you have a driveway? How do you get to your backyard? Do you have doors that go right from your house, or do you have to go around? You know, is there a parking problem on your street? You know, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's always important to price your house right. It's probably one of the most important things. And let the buyers determine what their best offer is. It's important to go fishing in the ocean, just in the ocean. Everybody can swim by your bait, and if they think it's attractive, versus, you know, in a pond or a puddle or something. So having your house priced right is still one of the most important things to do and to take note of. And ultimately, if you don't get the offer that you want, you know, my contracts, you're not forced to sell. You don't have to sell if you don't get the offer. We really want you to sell once you sign up, and we put all this effort into it. But if things don't go your way, but a good realtor should be able to be honest with you about your expectations.
Sure.
And the longer you sit on the market, you know, people say all the time, sellers, well, I'm not in a rush. Well, I'm glad you're not in a rush. That's nice. But here's the culture of the market here. I don't know if you've ever bought anything out of state, but I have. And I'm like strung out, you know, because I'm here. And people out there, oh, you know, it'll take 4 weeks to get an appraisal because there's just not that many appraisers around. The culture of the market here is that if it's not hot, you can't get an appointment, there's not multiple offers, then something's wrong.
Right.
And something might not be wrong. You might be pretty darn good. But because you priced it too high, people are intimidated and they're not coming to see your house and they're not writing offers. So
what's your average days on the market this year, would you say?
7.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's really, they move pretty quick. And sometimes people too, sellers, like, well, you're not going to market it for that long. This must be so much easier for you. It's like, I'm talking about spreadsheets and offer presentation. Sure. And I tell sellers, you know, how the market's changed for me as a listing agent is that all the work that we do is done before the house goes on the market. Mm-hmm. Because once the house goes on the market, it's hair on fire. And we have to respond to people, get people in there, get the tours done, we have the CC&Rs. I mean, we have everything before
I would argue
it goes on
it's
the market.
way more work.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And it's a lot of liability because people are making decisions about $1 million houses and they're stressed out. And so you have to make sure that you have covered everything you can possibly cover and that you've had the time and space to do that before it even comes on the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think we talked about this the other day about what was the price of the first home that we sold, because I think we both, first home that we ever sold was in Anaheim over here. And I think I looked up my street. It was on Turin was the first home that I sold. It was a 2-1 and sold it for $99,000.
I know the first house I bought was a 2-1 in Anaheim, and it was $135,000.
Wow.
But the first house I sold in Anaheim was maybe 2 or 3-1, and it was $178,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are any of those houses available today?
I know, for a price. I mean, they're probably like 7 something now.
At least. Okay, so Governor signed a new bill, SB 9. You know, there's a big push for the housing shortage that we're experiencing here in California, specifically here in Orange County. And, you know, as you know, SB 9 is going to allow people to build additional units on their home with lots of restrictions. So there's a little bit of panic about this, about what's going to happen. What are the neighbors talking about that? Do you think that's going to help at all? Is it going to hurt? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that we've been sort of in this housing crunch. I mean, at least since 2018.
At least.
We just have not had enough. I mean, it is a serious problem. And it does need to be addressed.
We have Disney Resort over here.
Yeah.
Right? We're probably the largest employer now in Orange County is Disney.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, they can't live here, right? There's
Right.
nowhere for them to live here.
I know,
now.
and that's like when people can't live, like you have to look at like responsible planning, right? Like you want people to live in the neighborhood where they work because then they're not commuting. which is better for the environment. It's better for their sanity.
Better for the neighborhoods, for classroom, and all that
if the
stuff.
kids go to school in the neighborhood. Imagine, if you worked at Disney but you lived in Corona and your kid went to school in Corona and there was an emergency.
Right.
Like, this has got to be tough on people. So it's definitely having a unit that you can rent out is definitely something that I can see as being an asset to the community, because like I said, over half the people that live here are renters, and so I think that that's definitely on the plus side. The negative side is that we struggle in most downtowns, and like Santa Ana and Anaheim and Fullerton, there's no parking on the street overnight. So they have really, I think that's been their saving grace. But, parking is an issue.
Right.
Infrastructure is an issue. As far as our sewers, we have deficient sewers in Anaheim. So I'm going to be real curious to see how the city handles the state mandate. Yeah. We haven't been able to build units unless you're in an area that has the sewers fixed. Like, it's really interesting, because we built a unit behind our house, but it's a pool house. Nobody lives there, but it's permitted as a pool house because it couldn't be somewhere where somebody lived, because then they'd be using the sewer and it would impact the sewer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that'll be interesting.
So does this help? Does it scratch the surface of anything, or?
I think it does. It's just, as long as people, just do it responsibly. And like, when we first were allowed to build ADUs around here, there were a lot of rules about how many parking spaces you had. Then that got loose. And then it was like, okay, we'll be by a bus stop.
Right.
And then it's like, well, you could make it 250 square feet. It's like, wait a minute, well, if you have a regular ADU, then you can have a junior ADU.
They're probably riding their bike. That was what the planning commission used to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
they're not riding their bike.
There's nobody at the bus stop. I don't understand who's riding. There's not many people riding, but okay. But anyway, so it's there, and I'm curious to see kind of sometimes when new things come to law, if you kind of like sit back and let's see how things are going to pan out and how different cities interpret these things, it'll be interesting, to say the least.
For sure. All right, so let's go into fourth quarter. It's we haven't had a normal fourth quarter for a couple of years.
Yeah.
If we look at last year fourth quarter, it was huge.
Yeah.
Because everybody we didn't have the summer, and it kind of ended up here at the fourth quarter. What does the fourth quarter look like this year? What's your predictions?
I think that there's not going to be very many homes that are on the market, even less than what we think. I see it happening now. I just see really nothing on the market. So, unfortunately...
Do you see it a steady decline, or do you think like it falls off and we go really quiet?
I would probably say a steady decline. And so I think it'll be the time of year for realtors to get out. And, which is what we do. Every year we have a lot of parties, and just reach out to your people, see what their goals are for the next year, and see how you can help them to achieve those goals. It's a great time to do that, but I just don't think there's going to be a lot of houses coming on the market.
What about you personally? Do you have a lot of homes coming up on the market towards the end of the year?
I have a list. I have never had a list like this of people that have been on the fence. I have tons of buyers that have been just looking this year. Even over a year, because they started looking and they thought they were going to buy it for $750, and now their $750 is $890. So I have a lot of people, a lot of pent up demand, and we'll see how that sort of plays out, because they need a house. I have a couple of things coming up here and there, but nothing like, there's not a wave coming for me personally.
We're thinking that we're going to see one little rush here before the holidays, specifically.
Next week.
Yeah, next week, right? Because there are people that need to be in something by the end of the year. There are people that need to get something sold, tax reasons or whatever reason. I think we're going to get one last little push before it quiets down for the holidays. But I think it's going to be a great end to a great year.
Yeah, I agree.
So I really appreciate you sharing your insights. This has been great. See you next time. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.